1874, the podcast with Dan Bardell and Gregg Evans.
Hello, welcome to the 1874, the podcast with me, your host, Dan Bardell, joined as ever by global Gregg Evans, and it's going to act as a little bit of a match review show, I guess, because we didn't do one last night because I got home too late. Aston Villa 4, West Ham 1, Greg, but before we do get into that, first, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Dan. How are you? Probably not as good as you. You must be absolutely delighted as a Villa fan at the moment.
Yeah, what a team Aston Villa are under Unai Emery. But before we do get into the game, I'm just going to say a word about NordVPN. You can grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to www.1874.io-NordVPN. If you do that, you'll get a huge discount off the Nord plan and you'll get 4 months for free. It's completely risk-free and you'll also get your money back after 30 days if you are not satisfied. But we'll hear more about Nord a little later on in the show. So yeah, Greg, as you were saying, absolutely delighted. Villa taking apart very good teams at home now just feels like a fairly regular occurrence. You know, it was Newcastle last season, Brighton a few weeks ago, and this game I thought was going to be a real test for Villa. And in a lot of ways, I think it was. But I thought this would be one where we'd really see what Villa were all about. And to beat West Ham 4-1, who have been one of the teams of the season so far. Actually, they've had an exceptional start to the season after losing Declan Rice. I think now we are seeing genuine top 5, top 6 contenders under Unai Emery.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Villa are just showing so many different sides to their games, depending on who they play. They've got a different game plan for every single team, although it might not look too much different on the eye. You know, there are slight nuances that make it a little bit difficult or a little bit different for the players to go and execute that game plan. And I think yesterday what we've seen was just Villa trying to tuck in even more narrower than usual and just forget about any width whatsoever and play just so centrally and through West Ham and in between the lines, and it really worked. Another brilliantly executed game plan. There were a few little moments, weren't there, after West Ham scored, where it got a little bit nervy, but Villa just showed the quality, went up the other end and got the goal through Watkins. So, yeah, another brilliant performance and keeps that incredible home run going.
It feels like, let's just go right back to the start in the team selection. I thought Carlos might play because of West Ham's physicality, and obviously he played the last game against Wolves. It feels a little bit at the moment, if you look at the Burnley and the Wolves games, when not everyone's fit because that isn't going to happen this season, but at the moment it feels very much like Villa have got a home 11 and an away 11, so Konsa shifts to right back and Carlos comes in when they're away from home. That's happened a few times. And then for home games, Emery seems to want to pick a team that he thinks is going to control the game, so almost forget about the opposition and have those little nuances that you said, but pick that team that he thinks can control the game a little bit more at home, and then for away, if he needs to, switch up to that defence.
Yeah, I think so, and you've got to obviously bring in the fact that some players have been on an international break, others have had a little bit more time to rest. Ezri Konsa, for example, would have been a lot fresher than just some of his teammates. Not necessarily defenders, but just some of his teammates that have come back and played quite a lot of games. So I think that's another sort of area that Emery's going to have to look at. Managing the loads of the players, looking ahead to the Europa League game and Europa Conference League game, and who's going to play in that game. We've seen Carlos play a fair bit, haven't we, in Europe, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he plays in Alkmaar on Thursday, and a couple of other changes. But I think it's just trying to mix it up, give enough players enough minutes, keep the home team very secure and not change too much, because what clearly has been working well will hopefully continue to work in the future. So yeah, there are all these little conversations that are taking place and all these considerations ahead of each game. But the team he put out yesterday was clearly, good enough to go and get the job done. I think the only difference you'll probably see is maybe Zaniolo not playing when Ramsey is fit. That would probably be, and perhaps maybe Moreno for Digne. But what they are getting down the left-hand side is still pretty good at this stage anyway.
Yeah, and before the game on the Sky coverage, obviously I was there at the game, but I've watched it back. It was a nice moment where Dean Smith was interviewing Unai Emery. Many of these players were Dean Smith, but brought to the football club and had a big impact on their career. I quite liked seeing Dean speak to Unai before the game. It's almost a bit like a film. Dean Smith at the beginning of the film, great start to the film, excellent, and then it slowed down a little bit in the middle with Steven Gerrard in charge, and then we've got Unai Emery giving us this like blockbuster finish to the film now. But it was a nice moment hearing those two talk, because although Unai Emery is doing absolute wonders, Dean Smith has played a big part to get Villa to be able to go to this point.
A huge part, it was a lovely moment, and there aren't many sort of managers or ex-managers, whatever you want to describe them as at the moment, but that would sort of have that humility to just chat with him at ease, and you see the way Dean Smith is. We all said it at the time. He was just a genuinely good bloke, as well as a very good manager, and really important, Dan, for Villa's journey that they've been on. He really got them firing at a time when they were, lowest that most of us have seen, in our lives, certainly. You could see the rapport that he still has with the players. Spoke with John McGinn and also Ollie Watkins during a pretty long stint throughout the day. I'm not sure he's used to sort of 5-6 hour media commitments like that, but look, he seemed to enjoy it, and it was good to get a bit of insight from him as well, and remember some of the good things that he did for Villa.
Yeah, and one of the players he brought to the club, Dean Smith, was involved in bringing to the club, is Douglas Luiz, who is just week by week becoming the complete central midfielder in the Premier League, and it's probably gone a little bit under the radar with Villa fans as well. That that's his 6th game in a row. Scoring at home. For someone who was never really a natural goal scorer, probably a lot of that was to do with the position he was playing. Quite a lot of the times he plays the deepest midfielder. In terms of dead balls now, and he's added penalties to his repertoire and smashing balls in from the edge of the box now. To score 6 games in a row in the Premier League at home for a central midfielder who isn't really an attacking midfielder, that's a great return.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and just the one thing I picked up on last week during the international break was just the fact that he's not even in the Brazil squad. I mean, look, he's clearly under consideration, and he has been in and around it previously, and the selectors for Brazil are fully aware of him. But I can't believe a player in that form playing, on the back of his brilliant season for Villa last year. And clearly at a time where Brazil are just needing a little bit of fresh impetus, I think, because, Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes, who get the start, who get the nod for Brazil, are, very, very effective players, but they've just drawn with Venezuela and lost to Uruguay. So it feels like you'd be playing your sort of informed players, and Douglas Luiz is certainly one of those. And it just goes back to the fact that, this was a guy who was signed really by Jesus Garcia Pitacha, also known as Suso, and a lot of his signings didn't really come off. It was a difficult time for Villa. They had to bring a lot of players into the club, but he was the main real reason that Villa signed Luiz. And I think when you just look through that Villa team now, there are a lot of people that have contributed towards putting it together. And I think that's what makes it kind of special, because Emery's come in and he's added the elite level coaching that the group of players needed. But so many other people have done good things to get players to the club and get them firing. So, to score 6 goals in 6 home games in the Premier League is special. And I think the last person to do that was Dwight York, and we all know how good he was as well.
Yeah, he wasn't bad, Dwight York. He was a decent footballer, I would say. Dwight York. But you're right in what you say.
And he was paid to score goals, wasn't he? Dwight York.
Yeah, it's not Luiz.
Luiz is not really, but and look, Austin McPhee has played a big part with him as well in the set pieces, because he didn't even take free kicks or set ball corners for and certainly not penalties for Villa before he came. So the work that he's done with him is also helping his goal scoring record as well.
Yeah, Emery's just completely unleashed him. You're right in what you say of different people being involved in getting people to the club. Like a few years ago, you'd look at Everton and you go, it's just a collection of players that like 3 or 4 managers have bought in. No wonder it's not working. It doesn't come together. Villa is a bit like that, but actually, because they've got such a good manager, it doesn't matter, because he actually coaches the players. I think if you interviewed Luiz, you've interviewed him, haven't you? And he talks about the individual work, and this is something that will go under the radar as well. The individual work that his coaches do with the players, and Louise spoke about that when you interviewed him, and he has. I said at the start he's become the complete central midfielder. Actually, I genuinely believe that. No, there isn't much that Douglas Louise can't do. And I can't believe. I don't want this to happen by any stretch of the imagination. I couldn't believe in the summer that he wasn't being linked with moves away for big money, because some of the midfielders that were going for huge money aren't as good as him, and teams like were paying money for those players when Louise is a top draw central midfielder now.
There's a lot to his game, isn't there? You know, he's very good under pressure. He takes the ball in difficult moments and's always brave. He passes it well. He can tackle if he needs to. He's got the goals. He's got, set piece qualities. He always provides the out ball for Villa when they typically build up with, five, sort of three from the back and the two central midfielders. So, they've worked on patterns of play that they know can get them forward. I think he fits really well into this team. I think he's happy in Birmingham now. It's obviously taking him a little bit of time to get used to it, because coming from Brazil and not really settling at Man City and having that loan spell in Spain, he needed to find a sort of permanent home, and he was only a young boy, of course. So just needed to settle in a bit, and I think Villa showed him the love. They promised him a new contract if he didn't go in the last summer window, and it almost felt like that was an opportunity for clubs to get him at that point before he'd signed the new deal. The last window was a bit more difficult because he'd signed a new contract. He was going to become a much more expensive player to get out of the club, so that potentially put a few clubs off. But there are lots of interested clubs, real top clubs looking at him. But I just go back to the same feeling now. If you're a Villa player, you don't really want to leave at the moment, do you? Yeah. Like I've always had in the back of my head a little bit of a concern about another bigger club poaching Emery, taking him away. But if you're the manager now, you're building something really special, and you ain't going to want to leave either, because it was Leon Bailey, wasn't it, who said it yesterday? The sky's the limit for Villa. We've heard that sort of phrase from the owners as well in the past, but it certainly feels like that now. And I don't want to get too carried away with it, because there are clubs that are positioned higher above Villa at the moment that have been there and done it. You'd still fancy Man City, Liverpool, and probably Arsenal to finish above Villa this season, just because of their history and the fact that they know what it takes to go and sort of sustain it. But there's not much difference between them and Villa at the moment. There really isn't, and it's really exciting to look forward to those early December games at home with Arsenal and Man City, isn't it, to see what Villa can do. Yeah,
it will be nice. Actually, we haven't had like a Brighton are probably the highest level team that Villa have played at home so far. We haven't played any of the big boys at home yet, so that will be interesting when we get to the start of December. And I just thought in that first half, although we were only 1-0 up, I thought we were in control of the game and just played some really nice stuff. It's measured, it's clinical. We don't keep the ball for the sake of it, but if we need to take the sting out of the game for a bit, we were able to do that. And then we're also able to turn it on and play with a bit more tempo when we need to, and use these little moves to manipulate and find gaps. And I just thought in that first half that Villa just played some great stuff.
Yeah, and a moment that sort of really captured me was just a couple of minutes before the half-time break. It was clear that Villa just thought, they put the brakes on it and they just thought, right, we're just going to pass it between us and we're just going to see this out until half-time. And I thought that was quite important, because West Ham did have their moments, and certainly when they scored their first goal, West Ham, there were a few moments where Torres was starting to just kind of lose control a little bit, and Antonio, who I thought was poor throughout the game, to be honest, and I really rate him and think that every time he plays he's a threat, but he just didn't really have a day at all yesterday. But there were just a few moments where they were getting in the ascendancy, and Antonio and Bowen were causing problems, and a couple of balls were flashed across the face of goal, weren't they? And there was a few chances. But look, Villa went up the other end and scored, and that's just what they've got now. I think with Diaby and Watkins, the two of them are just so lethal. The way they can stretch defenders, and they probably have got the best partnership in the division, haven't they? There aren't too many strikers that are combining in the way that they do. The stats speak for themselves. they've created more chances for each other than any other pair in the Premier League. And you can just see whenever Diaby gets the ball, he's looking for Watkins, isn't he? And fair play to Watkins, he missed a very good chance early in the first half, but kept his head to score when it really mattered.
Yeah, just on Watkins, he did miss that chance. It's frustrating because he kills the ball like
Brilliant
absolutely nothing,
touch,
and it was fired at him. So he's almost done the hard part. And he said himself in his interview after the game that he should have scored, but he doesn't let things affect him. And even in that first half, he's so threatening. He's not even on the ball that much. And again, that was spoken about on Sky, but he's always just providing space for his teammates and being an outlet. And he's involved. I think they spoke about him not being involved in the build-up. I actually think I think the opposite of that went from what I say. I think he is always involved in the build-up, and he didn't score in the first half, but again, he got an assist. Look at a lovely, clever little poke towards Douglas Luiz, and I just think that now, even in games where he doesn't score, Watkins, and I know he did score, but he'll get an assist. He got an assist away at Wolves as well. Again, I just watch him and just think, I wouldn't swap him. I genuinely wouldn't swap him for anyone at the moment in the Premier League in terms of strikers. I know obviously there's Haaland, but I just think what Ollie Watkins provides Villa, provides Emery, is just perfect.
Yeah, it is, and there's real synergy, isn't there, between him and the rest of his teammates now. It's like they know he knows what the manager wants, and it feels like the players around him know what he needs now as well. And it's working. He's getting plenty of assists, plenty of goals. And I think what often goes unnoticed or doesn't get highlighted as much is his clever runs and the way it drags defenders around and just frees up a little bit of space for others. And the fact that he can go either way and score. I did an interview with a striker coach who he worked with, who worked on a bit of his finishing with him. It was at the start of last season, and the thing that he said to me was that his greatest strength is that he can go one side or the other side, and it totally scares the defenders because they don't know which way he's going to go and score. And he showed that yesterday, whereas most players would come inside and shoot with the right foot, he went outside, shot with the left foot. Goalie didn't know what to do. Zuma was completely bamboozled, and
good.
And that just shows his quality. So.
Yeah, Benteke used to be good at this as well, where he could go either side, but he used to run full tilt and then slow down and then go again. Defenders hate that when you do that. Watkins is very good at doing that as well, slowing it down and then going again. And like you say, Zuma absolutely bamboozled, which I love to say because I don't like Kurt Zuma at all.
Yeah. So as a cat fan, you're
as an animal lover,
as an animal lover,
and just generally a good human being, Greg. I don't like to see animals get abused. So to see Kurt Zuma run ragged yesterday was an absolute joy for me. I very, very much enjoyed that. So
it's interesting what you say about just Watkins stopping and starting and slowing down like that. He spent a lot of time watching Mo Salah, and how he did that, and learnt a lot from his game, because that was the thing he really wanted to improve. He wanted to be able to slow it down and speed up really quickly. So it's a specific sort of tactic that he's worked on.
It's a good trait, that is. It's not. I don't think that's easy to replicate. I don't think that's an easy thing. Not many forwards can do that as naturally as he does it. But then he's spent time on his game. Again, I keep harping back to the interviews. I thought I didn't watch the game on TV, but I thought I watched it back, and I thought the coverage was really good yesterday. It was very Villa-centric, which I enjoyed, and there was a lot to learn and take away from that coverage. So if you were at the game yesterday and you've recorded the game, go back and watch it, because there's some great stuff, great tidbits before and after the game. You get the impression of how hard Ollie Watkins has worked on his game, and that shouldn't be taken for granted, because some footballers don't do that. Not all footballers do have that mentality of wanting to improve and wanting to drive and wanting to get better, but Ollie Watkins has definitely got that. I think the second goal, Villa scored at a good time. It's a definite penalty from where I was sat in the whole end. I shouted penalty straight away, and it got given. I presume Gregg Evans has got no qualms with the penalty. Sometimes we used to disagree on pens.
No, definite penalty. I mean, Paqueta's put his teammate in a bit of trouble, hasn't he? And I actually thought up until that point Paqueta was the best player on the pitch. He was really impressive.
He was having an okay game. I don't know. He was the best.
I think he stood out to me. He stood out to me up until that point. But then sort of. Yeah, that sent him on a bit of a downward spiral, fortunately for Villa. But yeah, 100% a penalty.
you just have faith that Louise will score the penalty. I think he's got 3 different ways in his penalties as well in front of the whole end in the Premier League this season. I think he's got left, right, and centre so far from his penalty. Could be wrong with that, but that's how my memory is remembering. And then we're thinking, right, here we go. We could go again here and score a few goals, which obviously we did go on and do straight away. We can say that's the one downfall with Villa at the moment. We can't seem to keep clean sheets. Clean sheets don't seem to be generally happening for us, but it doesn't seem to matter, especially at home, because we score so many goals. It's a very unlucky goal. West Ham always seem to score a lucky deflected goal at that end against us. They did last season to win 1-0. I'm sure Lingard scored a deflection the 1 year as well in the COVID. It's always seemed to get a customary lucky goal against us, and they got it with Jarrod Bowen, who for West Ham, he was the one who stood out for me. I was watching him quite closely, and he's never stops moving. His movement, he's
hard work, really.
But he never stops making runs ever. Played a lot of his football central, actually coming in from the left hand side. So it's a horrible deflection, ends up going in. And Villa for 10 minutes did have to ride out a bit of a storm. There was a flurry of corners, like you say, balls flashing across the goal. I thought Cash did well with a couple. There was a great defensive header at the near post from Ollie Watkins from a corner as well. And I think that just shows that the level of this team. Now they are a team. There is no star man in this team. They are a team, and they dig in when they need to as well, and they get each other out of jail if someone makes a mistake, and they protect each other. They are like a band of brothers, and you could just see that in that 10-minute spell, the determination to not let West Ham get level, and then they rode out of that storm and obviously go 3-1 up through Watkins. But there was a spell a bit like that in the Brighton game when it was at 3-1, where for 10 minutes there was a lot of pressure. They dealt with it again. It's just another trait that's really good with this team.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact they haven't had too many clean sheets. I mean, not so many of late, but I think they've only conceded 4 goals in the 11 games in the 11-game unbeaten run at home, and that's one goal in each game as well. So it's not like teams are going to score goals. I think it's the way Villa react to that. And although it was a bit of a scrappy goal yesterday, I think the way they reacted was brilliant. And, going into the game, Villa and West Ham have scored the most set pieces, between them, have scored from the most set pieces between them in Europe. So, it was pretty inevitable that there was going to be some tasty deliveries put into the box that either side were going to have to deal with. Villa got another goal from a set piece officially with the penalty, but they were excellent defensively. And James Ward-Prowse has caused Villa problems, hasn't he, over the years? Villa had a look at signing him. I reported back on that a couple of years ago. That never got done, But we've seen some of his free kicks cause problems at Villa Park in previous years. And look, his set pieces yesterday from corners were excellent. But as you said, Dan, Villa defended really, really well. And there was something you mentioned there. I wanted to put that to you just as a supporter, because I didn't have an answer to it. And I genuinely couldn't think who it is now, but there isn't actually one sort of most popular player at Villa now. Is that if you was to say who's the real fans' favourite, you could say 4 or 5 different players for various reasons. Whereas, before it's always like, well, Jack Grealish sold the most shirts, he had the name on the back the most, he was the most popular player. Benteke at one point. There's been loads across the years, of course, but now you're right. It's a real group. It's a real solid group, and there's no star player in there. But albeit they're all very good players in their own right.
Yeah, the goalkeeper's the biggest name, isn't it? Emi Martinez, obviously, because he's won the World Cup and he's been voted as the best goalkeeper of that tournament. So if you had to pick one, I'd probably say it is the goalkeeper. I bet Villa shift more goalkeeper shirts than they have done in previous years.
Do, actually.
Oh, really?
It's interesting. I don't think
they see a lot around the ground. I think if official numbers that they're not that popular, goalkeeping shirts in general. I was not expecting you to have the shirt sales numbers to hand, Greg. To be honest, when I said that, they must sell more because of Martin. It's not
that a popular shirt. To be fair, just the goalkeeper in general, yeah. But you'll know why. You'll understand why I know the answer to that at some point soon.
Okay, interesting. Well, on that little teasing bombshell, let's hear a little bit more from NordVPN.
If you guys are getting fed up with missing live football, then our new show sponsor, NordVPN, might be able to help you out. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and smart TV. If you want to watch, let's say, some US content, it allows you to appear like you're in that country. And while you're connected, no one can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. The service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty dab handy. A part of NordVPN supporting 1874, the Aston Villa channel, they have given us an exclusive deal of up to 65% off and 4 months for free, which also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you have to do is go to www.1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details will also be in the description. And as always, we are truly grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight. But if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help us to keep the channel running.
Yep, thanks to NordVPN for continuing to back the podcast. We really, really appreciate it, and do check out that deal. It's very, very helpful at weekends when you're not at the football, and if you want to watch some of the games as well. So do check out the deal from NordVPN and help the channel out. So yeah, Villa rode that storm, Greg, and then 3-1. Ollie Watkins with that. It's just a tremendous finish. It's such a good finish from the angle. You really blink and you miss it. Sat in the hole, and flies in the net. Areola slumps to his knees. Zuma turned inside out. And right foot. Carragher spoke about this. Watkins kind of his right foot, left foot, good in the air as well. And Carragher reckons he's the next in line after he's England striker if Harry Kane's not fit. I'm not sure Gareth Southgate does see it like that, but I still just think Ollie Watkins couldn't be doing any more.
Yeah, I don't think he could be doing any more. I've written, plenty of articles on him in detail, and as I mentioned previously, when I spoke to the striker coach who worked with him, one of the articles I written was just how diverse his finishing is. The fact that he can go either way, and he's great with his head as well. And look, I think it's only Mo Salah and Erling Haaland now who have either scored or contributed to more goals in the Premier League for their respective teams since Unai Emery took charge of Villa. So, and Watkins is next in line to that. So look, he's doing a brilliant job. I'm not sure if he's as fancied, as you say, by Southgate as he is by Emery, for example. Only time will tell on that one, but I don't think he can be doing much more, really. I've said this for a while now. I don't. He goes through spells, doesn't he, where he has 5 or 6 games where he might not score, but then he jumps in with a hat-trick, and it just always brings his numbers back. So he just consistently throughout his career, he scored goals. And the fact that he's now doing it in the Premier League for, 3.5 seasons or whatever it is, just shows he's a brilliant striker. It was a great goal.
9 for 9.
It was a good goal. Okay, Villa got a little bit lucky with Kudus' bad touch, and Torres sort of didn't play the pass exactly that he wanted, but the right idea was there, and that's what Villa are really good at now. I think a progressive pass out from the back from either Konza or Torres, and then all of a sudden they're just haring down, 3-on-3 or 3-on-4 or whatever it is, and it was just McGinn's little dink pass over, and all of a sudden Watkins is there again. I think that's what they're really good at.
Yeah, he's 9 for 9, Watkins, in terms of goals and assists, isn't he, this season? 9 for 9 goals, his goal contributions, 9 goal contributions in 9 games. Is that correct for Watkins this season?
I don't know the exact numbers, but that sounds about right. Yeah,
I'm sure they said that on the coverage. Just again, Villa cannot do better for a striker, in my opinion. And people that are saying it, they're wrong. They are just wrong. I know everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's wrong that people think that Villa can do better. They can't. He's been unbelievable for the last year since Unai Emery's come in. And me and you actually we were defending him under Gerrard. He wasn't getting any service, but we were saying he's improved his game here. You can see his hold up plays good, but the goals aren't there because the team's not playing well. Watkins has been an unreal buy for Aston Villa. He really, really has. And then 4-1, Leon Bailey came on with a lovely little cameo, Greg.
Yeah, he's doing well, really. He's an impact substitute, and I know that's not what he will want. He'll want to be starting more games. I presume he'll start, Kamara on Thursday. Just part of the rotation process that Emery will have to go through. But it was by far the best goal I thought of the 5. I thought it was lovely silky feet and the way he was just able to turn his defender inside out, and then a lovely finish. And it was good to see him sort of genuinely happy after he scored. You could see the real, pleasure on his face after it. It means a lot for strikers, and we've been quite critical, I think, of Bailey over the years. I think you're seeing a bit more of him this year. And I don't mean this in a nasty way, but because he's not playing as often, we're not getting on his backs too much because he's not doing too much wrong. But in his credit, he's coming on and affecting games and making an impact. And as you say, he scored a lot of goals this season. So it feels like he's turning the corner a little bit. And fair play to him because, the previous seasons, it just hadn't worked for him at Villa. He was underperforming.
So Villa win 4-1, another great 3 points, especially when you think, they beat Brighton 6-1 in the home game before, to then follow that up with a 4-1 against West Ham. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's incredible. And the job this manager has done in 12 months, he's been here 12 months now. I know we just said that there's no star in this team, but undoubtedly the star is the manager. The job he has done has been out of this world. Greg, the podcast we were doing before he came in, how has he done this? He's a genius.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it, that it was like a year ago that you were at Fulham and I was at Fulham as well, and we were thinking like that. I mean, that felt like there were some bad times covering Villa, but wow, I mean that was up there. Villa were dreadful. They were absolutely awful. And I can just remember the lack of sort of leadership from the bench that day when sort of Gerrard and McAllister it had just gone, and Ollie Watkins was, who's not the most vocal, of the group, was organising huddles to sort of get the team together to try and get some sort of cohesion going. But wow, I mean, and this was against Fulham. Villa take on Fulham now, you'd expect them to just find a way past them, wouldn't you? But they were absolutely battered, and that was only a year ago. So for all the supporters out there that are struggling with football with their teams, it does just show that sometimes a change can make a big difference. And look, there aren't many Unai Emerys out there, so it's not easy for every club. But we were close to rock bottom again, weren't they, at that point? And what's happened since has been brilliant. I always go back on about this. I do think the structures that were in place at Villa helped. I think there's no denying Emery's elite level of coaching has helped, and he's got some really good guys alongside him who he specifically brought in as well. There are more coaching staff there now. Rodri, who is a bit of an unsung hero as the individual coach, does so much hard work with individuals, and obviously because that's his job, but does so much with the players in terms of video analysis and working on their specific responsibilities. I just think that's helped. I think the biggest compliment you can probably give Emery is that he's improved so many players that were underperforming when he arrived. And he seems to have a knack of getting a couple of decent players in of his own anyway, in Moreno and Torres.
Yeah, what a moment in Villa's history I think this could turn out to be, hiring Unai Emery and moving on from the disastrous period that was going on before. And now you haven't got a press box archives this week, but I think I can probably conjure one up based on what we were just talking about. I'm sure you won't mind me telling this story. So
go for it.
Yeah, I think you might know what it's going to be because it involves that Fulham game. So I'm quite a placid football fan. I don't really like, a lot of Villa fans can be over the top in my opinion. I'm not really like that. And went to Fulham away last season, drank a bit too much before the game. Let's be perfectly honest here. Spent the day drinking. Went to the game, and I lost my head. Completely lost my head in that game. But probably the most I've ever lost my head in a football match. I was shouting. It was all based around the manager, really. I didn't rate the manager. I wasn't joining in some of the songs that weren't great about him, but I was making my opinion very well known in that away end, having conjured up a bit of confidence because I'd had a few beers. And then I receive a text message from my journalist friend, Gregg Evans, the next morning saying, "You sounded like you were a little bit leery in the away end." And unfortunately, I'd been sat next to one of the fathers of one of the players, and he grasped me up. I knew I was sat by him, but he grasped me up to Gregg Evans and almost like telling your dad about your about your son's behaviour and getting a little bit of a telling off from Daddy Gregg. The next day, I did. So that was a weird moment in my football life. I genuinely never do that, but I was absolutely battered, and I'd absolutely had enough because I'd spent the last few weeks on like Talk Sports, Sky, whatever, like trying to defend the Villa fan base because everyone in the media was saying Villa they just need to give Gerrard time. They just need to give Gerrard time. No one's going to come in and be able to turn that round. He'll get it right. And I knew that was wrong. And even like a few days, I think it was the day after, I've told this story on another outlet before. I did 5 Live. I can't remember who was on it, but obviously one of them was Glenn Hoddle. And he said something at the start of the segment about Gerrard getting the sack and that it was a disgrace. And I completely disagreed with it. And I said at the start, no disrespect, Glenn, but what you've just said basically is a load of rubbish. I said it way more polite than that. And he literally took his headphones off, threw them down, and just sat there like that, with his arms folded for the rest of the segment. And the presenter had to carry on interviewing me and speaking to me and asking me questions. But Glenn Hoddle wouldn't engage with me for the rest of the interview because I disagreed with what he'd said about Steven Gerrard at the start. So that was a bizarre 24 hours in my media life. But my dad's never really told me off very much in my life. To be told off by Gregg the next day, that was a low moment. It was like
I heard it was just it was chaos in that way. Well, it was chaos from what I could see, but yeah
it was.
When I heard some of the songs that you were joining,
I didn't join in the songs. That wasn't what happened. I
didn't realise you dropped that low down, but
no, didn't join in with the songs, but I did have my say in the away end that night. But that was one of those moments where it's like a text where it says, "I'm not angry with you. I'm just
disappointed."
Yeah, it was very upsetting. So that's probably a good place to end the podcast. But before we do go, we'll catch up with Gregg on fatherhood as we're talking about him being a dad and telling me off. How's it going? It's been a few weeks since we last did a pod, Gregg.
Yeah, it's going well actually. Yeah, I'm lucky. My wife's a bit of a. Well, she's a robot or soldier. I keep calling her both of those. She just gets up in the night and does it, and that takes a bit of the pressure off me, so I can have a day at work. The next day a little bit uninterrupted. But no, it's good fun, enjoying it. You don't get much back in these first few weeks. It's all a bit of a slog, but yeah, looking forward to what it brings.
Yeah, well, I'm very, very pleased for you. We sent you a gift. I don't know whether it ever came. If you did, you didn't say thank you. A gift from the channel.
No.
Adam, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't sort it out. Adam did, but obviously you've not received it because we've never received a.
No, I haven't.
Okay, maybe Adam didn't. Maybe Adam didn't order it, but he sent through what he was going to order, and I gave it the big DB sign off that it was fine to get. So I'll catch up with Adam around.
Right. No, nothing's arrived.
Did you not wonder why I asked you for your address?
Oh yeah, I did think about that actually. Yeah.
That was why.
No, nothing's arrived, mate.
Oh, okay. Knowing Adam, he's probably just forgotten to do it. But the wheels were in motion, so you'll get that gift, Gregg. Don't worry.
As long as it's not a Villa View mug, then we'll be all right.
I mean, no, I was desperate to get you a Villa kit, but I didn't. We didn't do that. We came up with a compromise. But yeah, that will hopefully be in the post. I'll catch up with Adam about where your present is. A frantic.
We'll get the tracking number, shall we?
Yeah. We'll send it over. You must have thought I was a right weirdo just asking for your address. It's just seeing me sat outside your house having a look in. You gave it me as well. You didn't even ask me why. You just passed it on. Just gave it me.
It's the level of trust I have in you, Dan.
Great trust. Thanks, Dad. Right then, let's go. Great podcast. Great end to the podcast there, Gregg. Thank you very much. We'll see what's going on with the gift for your son. We'll find out what's going on there. Thanks to everyone for tuning into this week's edition of 1874, the podcast. Whether you've taken it in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, I can't think of any more podcast outlets. Give us a like, give us a review, and subscribe. By the way, in which you're taking in this podcast, that would be very much appreciated. Going to set a target because Villa have won again. What's that? 11 in a row at home now in the Premier League, which is just unheard of in my time of being a Villa fan, but I can't really set a likes target of 1,100. That's not going to work. So we'll go with the Douglas Luiz has scored for 6 games in a row on YouTube. Let's aim for 600 likes on this podcast, and we'll go again next week. Gregg and myself do something around the European game in the week, either a review or a preview. I'll get something done on the channel for that. I'm away a couple of nights this week, so it's going to be difficult, but I'll try and get that sorted in some way. Thanks to Gregg for joining me and for telling me off 12 months ago. Have a great rest of the week. Keep reveling in Villa's great form and that great win at the weekend, and as always, up the Villa.